So we were talking about the utter bankruptcy of Democratic leadership. And we know that Joe Biden was a big Matt Iglesias fan. And apparently, many of the Democratic leadership have been looking to Ezra Klein, both in terms of what he writes, but also like literally in person. The word is like a lot of these people call Ezra Klein for advice.
Words of affirmation.
They have big conferences with abundance funded things. And again, you know, we talked about this the other day in this same interview with Ross Douthat about his description of what was going on in the Democratic, like interracine sort of center left arguments. It's really just, even within the context of the Democratic Party, he mischaracterized one side of it. It's not just a question of like oligarchs and big money goes away and everything gets fine. It's obviously like that is just a major obstacle to things, to government actually doing things.
The major obstacle. And by the way, this was like what liberals were saying. Like, I mean, this was very, very standard boilerplate liberal conversation here. The fact that he's redirecting it away from that in this time period is sus, to say the least.
And listen, when he's going to go and describe about doing something different, now let me tell you, there has not been, and I've been following this only for about 21 years professionally, but I've been following politics probably for closer to 40 years, rather intently. There has never, ever, ever in those 40 years been a time where the left controlled what candidates are nurtured, recruited, promoted within the context of primaries or, frankly, in any state. There's never been a time. There may have been times where, like, you know, the grassroots overcame the establishment or Democratic leadership, but there has never been a time where the left chose candidates, particularly in red states. It's just, I'm sorry, we don't have the equivalent of what happened with the Tea Party, where the Tea Party had these like sort of far out, like, you know, Christine O'Donnell, like whatever her name is, like, I'm not a witch candidate. And it went down in flames. When you look at the biggest failures of Democratic challengers to Republicans, if you look up in Maine for the past two cycles, those candidates were not picked by the left. They were down the road, moderate, Democratic, DCCC or Senate picks. If you look at, like, I don't know, Texas, or you look at, like, wherever you want to look, it is not the left that is picking these candidates. But in Ezra Klein's world, it is. And we have to change that. And we have to change it back to the way that it already is. We saw this in Kentucky. I mean, on and on. Like, here, let's listen.
Political violence of that kind is fundamentally immoral and catastrophically ineffective. I don't find this to be a hard line to hold.
No, I don't imagine that you do.
And the stakes of politics are almost always incredibly high. I think they happen to be higher now. And I do think a lot of what is happening in terms of the structure of the system itself is dangerous. I think that
All right, pause it for a second. Pause it for a second. Now, what he's setting up here is he's pivoting from talk of the political violence into, like, we are living in an extraordinary time. The threat of losing the midterm elections, the danger posed by it, is extraordinary. And so we must take extraordinary steps. And you're not going to believe it, but his extraordinary steps are almost identical to the steps that we've been taking.
And we would agree on that premise. That this is existential. And this is why what he's saying here has to be vociferously opposed and rooted out of the Democratic Party root and stem, because he is proposing the same repackaged dog shit that has lost us these elections and gotten us to this point.
Vichy capitulation.
Go ahead.
In many ways. And that a lot of the people who embrace alarm don't embrace what I think obviously follows from that alarm. Oh my God. Which is the willingness to make strategic and political decisions you find personally discomforting, even though they are obviously more likely to help you win.
Pause it. Okay, here's this is very clear. The way that this guy argues is all in the adverbs and the adjectives. Obviously clear. It naturally follows.
Yep.
No, that is not the case. There is absolutely nothing obvious about what he is saying. Because we have time and time again historically seen that what he's about to offer, that is so obvious. Now, I agree with the idea that, yes, you need to do things that are make you feel uncomfortable. But ask yourself, when you look at like who is going to win the mayoralty in New York? I understand New York is not, you can't transplant New York to, Ohio but look at who is not making the uncomfortable decisions. It is the Democratic leadership.
Yeah.
And they're going down with the ship.
Right.
Okay, so I just want to set this up because everything he's like, this is obvious. Everything is obvious. He's saying, this is obvious. This is obvious. He is trying to paint the people who are going to disagree with what he's about to say and suggest as so ideologically captured that they can't think rationally.
Over emotional, morally pluralistic, that kind of thing. Like,
yes.
It's not framed, to your point, as uncomfortable to not endorse a guy who's Muslim, who is associated with DSA.
What he's about to say here, this is so obvious, he's going to say, but the problem is an emotional problem. Go ahead.
And political decisions you find personally discomforting, even though they are obviously more likely to help you win. Right? Taking political positions that'll make it more likely to win Senate seats in Kansas and Ohio and Missouri. Trying to open your coalition to people you didn't want it open to before. Running pro-life Democrats. And one of my biggest frustrations with many people whose politics I otherwise share is the unwillingness to match the seriousness of your politics to the seriousness of your alarm.
Okay, now right there, okay. Honestly, that is, I don't get offended too often, but the idea that his politics are more serious, that he has, that what people who don't, first of all, in Kansas, Ohio, and Missouri, abortion rights won in every voter referendum in those three states.
It's outrunning Democrats.
Outrunning Democrats. But if you feel that way, you are not serious. This is literally adopted from David Broder. This is, not only is this all of what he's doing a complete retread from 20 years ago, you will also notice that Hillary Clinton in 2004, in the run-up to that election, and in the wake of that election, we need to not be so uptight about abortion rights. I'm not making this up. Go Google it. They've tried this before. They're doing the exact same play again. And they're telling you, if you have a different analysis of what will work, you're not serious. I don't even have to debate this with you. You're just not serious. You're being a child. You're being a child.
But
you're being a child.
You mentioned
you're not being serious.
I know I'm not being serious. You mentioned Iglesias earlier. This is the popularism thing that he focused on. The idea that Democrats should orient their politics around what currently polls as popular. This was the impetus behind the throwing of immigrants under the bus and supporting things like the Lake and Riley Act and trans people. And that has not worked. But you'll notice. You'll notice that there's one issue. There's one issue here. Ezra Klein and Iglesias are not touching this when they're talking about taking uncomfortable positions in favor of what's popular that will get you elected. They'll throw trans people, abortion under the bus, women's rights. Seriously? The only electoral successes that you've had in the Trump era have been based on abortion rights, basically. They won't change on the issue of arming Israel. We had a win with the Congressional Progressive Caucus endorsing blocking arms sales. And that's big, and it's proof that when political change is going to happen on this front, having Democrats in office is important because we are a part of that coalition. But Ezra Klein still has not called for an arms embargo on Israel, despite the fact that only 25% of independents support Israel's military action in Gaza. So that's that whole majority that is against it. And then over 90% of the Democratic base that is against it, per the Gallup poll last month.
And younger evangelicals.
Even then. So this is the issue that they're looking for, too, where we're talking about taxing the rich, of course. But how do you identify with voters and show that you are not bought? It's this issue. And it's across, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, anti-Semitic, not somebody that I like. But it's not a coincidence that she's the only Republican speaking out about this. And she gets the highest percentage of small dollar donations of anyone in the party. And the other two people that are in that high percentage are AOC and Bernie Sanders. So it's a substitute for folks, not as like some of the ideological lines get a little blurrier. How do you cut across? How do you get your message across, as we've been talking about? This is the issue. You show voters that you are not bought on this issue. And Ezra is paid millions of dollars, I don't doubt, or has made millions of dollars through his books or whatever. And he is avoiding that fact on purpose and throwing women in red states under the bus in the process.
His buddy David Shore tweeted out, I don't know, some time ago in 2024, the share of voters who support a woman's right to get an abortion, quote, for any reason if she wants one, continued to increase in 2024 to 58%. 12 years ago, it was 42%. To ignore funding Israel and to pick abortion is the most unserious thing that one could possibly imagine by someone who follows politics today. You talk about unserious. This is someone who has literally been like just sort of either steeped around people who do not challenge his premises at all. Because I just don't know how a serious analysis of politics could leave you to believe that abortion rights in this era is the best way to attract red state voters as opposed to not funding Israel. It's just, I'm sorry, that is the definition of unserious.
Looking at, Revolving Door Project, who's behind Abundance, the Welcome Fest, Abundance Fest, Reid Hoffman, Michael Bloomberg, who, as we talked about earlier, donated to Andrew Cuomo.
Titties.
These are it's not just incompetence. They are literally just knocking off issues that they can of marginalized people, of fundamental rights that they can just throw under the bus in order to avoid two topics. One, funding the genocide in Gaza, and two, taxing the rich. And both of these issues, I think, connect because people do not feel, as the Democratic Party tries to talk about democracy, there is no democratic connection that people feel with our government right now. And it's indicative in the Israel issue. It's happening on people's phones, and people don't understand why, right? How is this still going on? It's been 2 years of this brutality. How is this still going on? The people that show they're democratically responsive are the ones that can make change and show voters that you can stand up to big money interests. That is where we're at right now. And Ezra is trying to avoid that very topic.
Speaking of avoidance and being serious, has Ezra addressed Ta-Nehisi Coates' public intellectual standing, calling him out for basically doing modern lost causism with regards to Charlie Kirk, or is he just moving on to talking with other Republicans?
Don't know.
Great piece by Coates.
We'll probably address that, Ezra.
Yep.
It's gonna haunt you, the things you said about Netanyahu.
It is fascinating to watch. This is a guy who, maybe I'll save this story for another time, but I will tell that story.
I'm curious.
It's a legit story. It is indicative of this, but the copying of David Broder, I used to and people can go back and look at who he is, but it is quite clear what he is modeled his career after, and it really is so much about a career. It doesn't seem like there's, as much as I share the politics of all these people, they're incredibly unserious.
So John Schwartz has Ezra Klein's 2013 mea culpa of how he got the Iraq War so wrong, explains all his mistakes, and then proceeds to make every single mistake again.
It's kind of that's a meaningful connection though, because many of our worst Democrats also supported the Iraq War.
Oh, send me that link.
Yep.
And just like many of our worst Democrats support the genocide in Gaza.
I mean, I could tell you off the top of my head, I know, now Ezra didn't write about it very much, Social Security, but I know what his thoughts were on it in 2005 when Bush was coming after it. Well, I'll tell that story another time. I know that his the number of things that he has gotten wrong over the years has been stunning for someone who is so serious.
It's not quite Iglesias level, but it's, you know.
If this media rewarded people for being right about things, the left would be. That's
Be Rupert Murdoch.
That's
right
what
now.
that's what the experience of being on the left is.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.